This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
On the front end, Snow Chief. Now in the clear by 3 lengths. Raised down stage is second. Darby Fair is third. Ferdinand gaining ground along the inside fourth. Scat Dancer is fifth. Family Style races in sixth. Electric Blue is very wide, seventh and gaining as they race through the stretch. Snow Chief and Alex Solis on a big lead of 5 lengths. Raised down stage, tries to hold second, then Ferdinand at the rail. Electric Blue races in fourth. Family Style is fifth. They're in the final strides, and Snow Chief is striding clear to a big victory here. Ferdinand along the inside, battling with between horses Raised down stage and Electric Blue.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Down the Stretch. I'm Mark Asano. On this morning's program, the top 3-year-old of this year will be returning in 2014, and we will welcome in a pair of special guests. First, from the West Coast, Mr. Jerry Hollendorfer, who has both Tamarindo and Shared Belief for this afternoon's Hollywood Futurity. Jerry's also got a threesome for the Native Diver and NYRA President Chris Kay, and we will discuss, among other things, the price increases for Saratoga 2014. We will show you 2 more Hollywood Futurities going to the internal breaks and a good-looking maiden performance from yesterday at Hollywood Park. So all of that and much, much more if you stay with us for this, our December 14th edition of the program, which is being sponsored by Embrace the Race, the apparel for the horse racing lifestyle, who reminds you, now you know what to ask for this holiday season. The brand for you and your lifestyle, Embrace the Race. Tell your family and friends they can shop for you by reaching one of their personal shopping assistants at their store at 12 Circular Street in Saratoga. You can call them at 580-4500 or visit them at embracetherace.com. Embrace the Race, the apparel for the horse racing lifestyle, great brand, amazing products, perfect for the holiday season. Good morning once again on a weekend where it appears that we're going to welcome in winter in a big way. Aqueduct is still running. We will have Chris Kay toward the bottom of the hour to discuss, among other things, NYRA's proposed price increases for next year's Saratoga meet. For the second week in a row, good news about a top racehorse returning for another season. Last week it was Mucho Macho Man. Today it's the colt who Mucho nosed out in the Breeders' Cup Classic, Will Take Charge. The Wayne Lucas trainee had a terrific second half of the year with victories in the Travers and the Clark, as well as the big second in the Breeders' Cup Classic being the highlights. Will Take Charge, who is currently stabled at Oaklawn Park, may begin his 4-year-old campaign in the February 8th Don Handicap at Gulfstream. As expected, Flat Out has been retired. The winner of the recent Cigar Mile, the 7-year-old retired with 9 victories from 29 starts and earnings of about $3.65 million. Trained initially by Scooter Dickey and then by Hall of Famer Bill Mott, Flat Out won 3 Grade 1 stakes during his career. I kind of thought it was more than that. 3 Grade 1 stakes. He will stand at Spendthrift Farm. And Comma to the Top, who won 14 races and $1.35 million during his career, has also been retired. The 5-year-old Peter Miller trainee won 9 stakes, including the Grade 1, appropriately for this day, 2010 Hollywood Futurity. And for those of you, around my age, you're going to remember this next mare, Nastique, who was a multiple Grade 1 winning mare on grass, has died at the age of 29. Last weekend, a pair of American turf horses competed in Hong Kong. Little Mike, on the left of your screen, finished 9th in the Hong Kong Cup, while King Crisa, on the right, ran 12th in the Hong Kong Mile. Now, I think it's absolutely wonderful that they participated. I think it's great for our horses to go over there and give it a shot. But I hate to say, their finishes were really kind of expected. It would have been a surprise if they had finished in the top 3, and really a shock had they won. Because generally speaking, as we have come to find out, foreign turf horses, and this is generally speaking, foreign turf horses are pretty much superior to ours. And the Maryland Jockey Club has announced that the purse for next year's Preakness Stakes will be $1.5 million. That will be the first purse increase for the middle jewel of racing's Triple Crown since 1998. The Kentucky Horse Racing Commission has improved a rules change to its medication policy. The change will bring Kentucky in line with 10 other states in an attempt to get uniform medication rules. According to the Commission's medical director, Dr. Mary Scully, with Kentucky in the mix, states that make up 60% of all of the parimutuel handle are now on board. So while there has been a great deal of progress made in getting the uniform medication rules, there's still a ways to go, as only 60% of the parimutuel handle will now be under similar rules. All right, Friday's 6th race from Gulfstream. Want to show you a comeback horse. An entry-level allowance, optional claimer at 6 furlongs. Mark the return of Zykov, number 6. Away due to shin problems since a 14 1/4 length romp in his debut back on March 15th. Zykov had no problems in his comeback, as he would stalk the pace, he would take over in the lane, and go on to a solid 2.5 length victory. Now he's going to cover the 3/4 of a mile in here in 1:08.73. Interestingly, Zykov is a son of distorted humor and is out of the mare Wait a While, who won nearly $2.2 million during her career, $1.77 million on grass. This horse isn't exactly bred to be a pure sprinter. Zykov is a homebred from Arundel Farm and is trained by Todd Pletcher. Now, he hasn't been beyond 6 furlongs. He's only run twice. Both of the races have come at Gulfstream, and as I've mentioned to you in the past, you've got to be a little bit, conservative and careful, because some horses just freak at Gulfstream Park. But because of his pedigree and because of his obvious abilities, he's going to be an interesting prospect for next year. Pletcher trained the mother, and she was an absolutely outstanding turf mare. So it's going to be interesting to see if Zykov moves to the proper surface at some point in 2014. Now, Zykov was ridden by Javier Castellano, and congratulations to Javier, who yesterday at Gulfstream Park set a single season earnings record. Castellano surpassed the old mark of $25.63 million set by Ramon Dominguez last year. And by setting this new mark, in my opinion, that will help Javier in his bid to win an Eclipse Award, because there are, and I don't know how many, some or a great deal of voters who put a great deal of importance into those types of numbers. So that's going to be big for Javier, and congratulations to Javier Castellano. We are up to our first break on this December 14th edition of the program. Thank you so much for having joined us. When we return, it's out to Southern California, where we will welcome in Mr. Jerry Hollendorfer. As we go to the break, the 1991 Hollywood Futurity featured some very familiar names. So we'll take a look at a piece of the 91 Hollywood Futurity to the break. Back with Jerry Hollendorfer right after these messages.
They head to the half-mile pole, and Real West setting a sensible pace. They're going quick, but he's certainly not flying out here. He leads at a length to Casual Lies. Star of the Crop in the gold cap, poised right there in third. Leafard's Legend is fourth at the rail, and Turbulent Chris going wide out. Dance Floor in the black colours, 2 lengths off them, then Silver Ray. AP Indy is now starting a run. He's going to have to go 5 wide. Eddie Dalahousie still sitting on him. He's on the outside, 4 off the leaders. Old Master has 7 to make up. They approach in the quarter pole, and Real West has got something left up here. Star of the Crop, Casual Lies, Dance Floor. Extreme outside, AP Indy. Let's see, Eddie Dalahousie's just asking him to run now, and AP Indy looms dangerous in the centre of the track. Real West now trying to hold him off. AP Indy, Dance Floor comes through at the rail. AP Indy on the outside, and Dance Floor joining the fray at the rail. These two pass the 16th pole together. Dance Floor and Chris Antley. AP Indy and Eddie Dalahousie, but you can leave it to Eddie Dalahousie to win the Futurity on AP Indy by a neck. Dance Floor was second. Casual Eyes, a great run, was a distant
third. This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Embrace the tradition. Embrace the passion. Embrace the race. Apparel for the horse racing lifestyle.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. I'm Mark Cassano, and AP Indy for Neil Drysdale and Eddie Dalahousie by a well-measured half length over Dance Floor, and Casual Eyes in the 1991 Hollywood Futurity. Well, our first guest this morning has a pair of very promising colts for this afternoon's Hollywood Futurity. Joining us live via telephone from Southern California, Mr. Jerry Hollendorfer. Jerry, Mark Cassano welcoming you back to Down the Stretch.
Thank you.
Jerry, always nice to have you. Let's begin with the Cal-bred Tamarando. He has been awfully consistent for you from day one.
Yes, he's a real nice colt and tries real hard every time. So, horse has been training very well. We expect a pretty good effort from him today.
Jerry, in a moment, we're going to have a shot of him on the screen for our audience. Take a moment to describe him from a physical standpoint for us, if you would.
Well, he's a fairly large colt. Well, not real large, 16 hands, and he carries real good flesh and has been very, very sound up to this point. So, great big dark bay horse. So.
And how is he mentally, Jerry? How's he around the barn? How's he take to his training?
He's real good around the barn. When he gets over and gets ready to run, and we put the tack on him, he gets on his toes a little bit, but doesn't get real nervous.
Well, we are about to take a look at a piece of his last start where he came from last to capture the real quiet. Jerry, talk about this performance, if you would.
Well, he likes to run back off the pace, and I don't know what the pace is going to be today, but I'm sure it'll be substantial. So, he'll be sitting back there and looking for a seam or looking to get out and make a good run. So that's probably the way we'll approach the race with him.
Even though he broke his maiden going 5.5, Jerry, it looks like distance, at least middle distances right now, are absolutely no problem for him. It appears as though he relishes a route of ground.
I think you're right on that, and I think the more distance we get, the better he'll do.
Jerry, is it too early to say, or is it fair to say, that he appears to be better on synthetic right now than on dirt? Now, that may have something to do with the fact that Santa Anita is not exactly conducive to horses who come from far back, but he appears as though he's awfully good on synthetic.
Well, he's good on synthetic, but, I wouldn't rule him out for being just as good on dirt. So, at this point in time, I'm not going to spend any time worrying about that.
Was that his best effort to date in the Real Quiet?
I think it was, and, most of the talk that I hear around here, people would agree with that. So everybody thought that was his best race.
Jerry, how did he come out of the Real Quiet, and how's he been training up to this afternoon's futurity?
Well, he's been training really well. He hasn't had any works listed as breezing, but the last one that he did was certainly close to that.
Jerry, at this time of year, the 2-year-olds can change. They can improve in leaps and bounds. Some go forward, some go backwards. Do you sense that Tamarando is a colt on the improve?
Oh, I do, yes. And that's why you get a lot of the guys not afraid to run 2 horses in a race. And, McPeak has 2 in there, and Delazzi, I think, has 2 in there, and I have 2. And so, you're right. Horses can change this time of year, and they can either get better or go down, whatever. But everybody that entered in the race, I'm sure thinks they have a chance to improve.
Your second entrant in this afternoon's Hollywood Futurity is the very exciting Shared Belief. We are about to take a look at his debut on October 19th at Golden Gate. For our audience, he is number 4. Folks, please pay attention to only number 4, Shared Belief. Now, Jerry, you bought him privately out of this race. What were the numerous things you liked about him off this race?
Well, just the way that he did it, and he won quite easily, and a lot of the guys, including myself, look at numbers on races, and he had some big numbers, and then he was going to come to Southern California to train, and then Mr. Wygott decided that he wanted to sell him, so I asked him if he would give me a chance to buy the horse if he was going to sell him, and he said he would, and we agreed on a price, and we put together a partnership with myself and Dr. Todaro and some of Alex Solis's clients.
Can you tell us how much you paid for him?
No, I don't want to do that.
Okay.
It doesn't serve any purpose to tell how much we paid.
Jerry, you actually ran the 7-5 favorite in here, Time Jumper. Now, did having Shared Belief beat you by 7 lengths help convince you even more to go ahead and buy him?
Well, yeah, that was one of the factors. I had quite a bit of regard for Time Jumper, although he, like you said, horses can change. So when we ran him, he was beaten that day, and then when I ran him back, he didn't do what I thought he would do. So, there's one horse that came back and ran real well, and then my horse came back and he didn't run as well. So, I'm going to look to get Time Jumper going out long and see if we can get him to do better that way. But I had a pretty high regard for Time Jumper going into that maiden race.
Take a moment to describe Shared Belief for us from a physical standpoint, if you would.
Well, he's not quite as big as Tamarindo, but he's a very nicely has very nice conformation, and he's very professional, and nothing bothers him. We took him over and schooled him a couple of days here, like we always do before these races. But nothing bothers him, and he's totally comfortable over there. So I think that having horses around him and being around other horses doesn't bother him.
Well, the first time he started for you and your partners came in the Hollywood preview. Here it is for our audience. Shared Belief is number 2. Jerry, awfully impressive effort. Talk about this.
Well, he actually he came out of the gate pretty well. I didn't really expect him to be up that close. Corey made a decision to go on with him, which was the right one. And then when he asked him for a turn of foot, Shared Belief, he really gave it to him. So we're hoping that he'll do the same way today and run very well again.
It seems as though we're going to see it in just a moment. They're heading down the backstretch to the far turn. When they turned for home and Corey showed him the stick, it seemed like he just took off.
Right. Like I said, a big turn of foot in that race, and if he can have a big turn of foot again, then he should run very well.
Jerry, how had you had only had him for a relatively short period of time when you ran him in the preview. How had he trained up to the race, and were you expecting this type of big effort?
Yes, his works were real good. I worked him a couple of times before he ran. His works were real good, and before the last race, and then afterwards, here his works have been excellent.
What did Corey have to say to you after the Hollywood preview?
Oh, he just said when he asked him, he gave him everything right away. So that was very encouraging what Corey said.
How did Shared Belief come out of the preview? How's he been training up to the futurity?
Very good. His works have been rated excellent by everybody.
Now, there's always the question about stretching out around 2 turns. I took a look at his family. Actually, most of his siblings did better sprinting than routing. But Jerry, what's your feeling right now? Having run him once, having worked with him, what's your feeling about him stretching around 2 turns?
Well, it looks like off his last race, the way he finished and drew away, that he could get more distance. So, like they say, you never know until you try them. But it appears that he can get the distance.
All right, the native diver also this afternoon. Jerry will be represented by 3 nice runners. We'll take them in post position order. First, Blue Skies and Rainbows coming out of a second in the Breeders' Cup Marathon. How's he doing?
Doing very well, and we have 3 horses in that race. They all have different styles of running, so I don't think it's going to be a problem running all 3 of them. And I don't think any of the guys like to run 3 in one race, and I don't really like to either. But we didn't find other spots for these horses, so we wanted to give them all a chance.
This is kind of unusual in the respect that Blue Skies and Rainbows will be turning back from 1 3/4 miles to 1 1/8 miles. Any concerns about that?
Well, there's always concerns about everything, but I mean, you have a thing called availability of races. Yeah. So unless we want to sit them on the sidelines and wait for another 1 3/4 race or 1.5 miles. I could have run him 1.5 miles on the turf, but we don't think he's near as good on turf as he is on the main track. So, we decided that this was the spot to run him in.
Rousing Sermon, you've got him in there, and he'll be stretching out from a nice score in the 7.5 furlong on Trust in last. Tell us about Rousing Sermon.
Training well and has tactical speed, and so he should be probably somewhat forwardly placed in that race. He can run up on the pace or just off the pace, or a couple 3 lengths off the pace, whatever we want him to do.
Jerry's never been first or second in 4 prior races at 9 furlongs. Is this stretching out to his absolute limit?
Well, we'll find out in a few hours. Like I say, availability of races, and this was available to him, and we think he's training well right now, so we're not worried about if he's going to try hard or run well. If he can get the distance, then he should be right there.
And the final entrant in the Native Diver holds he holds a place in my heart, because earlier this year I had a nice future bet in the Kentucky Derby on him at very, very big odds. That's Here the Ghost. First, Jerry, remind us what sent him to the sidelines following the very exciting victory in the San Felipe.
Well, actually we had a guy that wanted to come in and buy part of the horse because he was on the Derby trail. Our horse, Here the Ghost, never ever jogged off or had any problems at all. When we x-rayed the horse, they called me and said, "You're not going to believe what we found here," but they found a line in his knee, which, he never showed anything on that knee, but it was a line that we felt could turn into a fracture line and significantly injure our horse. So we gave him plenty of time out, and we're bringing him back and trying to run him this year.
Now, he came back on November 7th with a second in a sprint. How good was that effort off the layoff?
Well, it was real good, and he galloped out real well. And here again, we're asking him to do a lot off of one sprint. But the other available race for him was the Malibu, which I think he could have run well in that. But we wanted to run him in this race, and if he's good enough, we want to get him set up for the Strube, which is in another month after this. So that was the planning on this particular horse. And then we can't do everything. So we didn't want to run him in the Malibu and then try to run him in the Strube. We wanted to run him in this race and prepare him to try to be ready for the Strube, which is in another month after this race.
Jerry, as we know, Hollywood Park will be closing in just over a week. What's it going to mean to your operation? And in your opinion, what's it going to mean in general to Southern California racing once Hollywood Park shuts down?
Well, needless to say, it would be hard to replace a facility like this. I've personally had a great deal of success here, and I've won a lot of races here and a lot of stake races here. So, it's upsetting to me on a personal level. Now, the guys down here, I think they have a fairly positive attitude about how to handle things, and it's going to take some transition and some settling in to see where everybody ends up, and then we'll have to try extra hard to sustain our racing program here and keep the quality up. So, I hope that all the guys are up to it, and I hope I'm up to it, and we just have to do the best that we can. But needless to say, it's very upsetting to me and a lot of people that Hollywood is closing, because it's been the perfect off-track facility, and it's been a perfect place for my own personal stable to train. We've mostly stabled here throughout the year when we were running in Southern California.
Well, Jerry, as always, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch, and all the best later this afternoon. Go out and win the final Hollywood Futurity and the final Native Diver, and we'll look forward to speaking with you again very soon.
All right, bless you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry Hollendorfer, ladies and gentlemen. And, you know, he's got a couple of pretty exciting 2-year-olds in Tamarindo who has already proven he can win going 2 turns. Shared Belief is awfully exciting, but they're, you know, down through time, there have been a lot of exciting horses, young horses winning around 1 turn. He's going to have to prove he can stretch out around 2 turns, and we will find out later this afternoon in the Hollywood Futurity. And we are up to our final break on this December 14th edition of the program. Thank you so much for having joined us. When we return, Mr. Chris Kay, as we go to this break, the 1997 Hollywood Futurity. So we'll take a look at a piece of the 97 Futurity, back with NYRA President Chris Kay, right after these messages.
Quick quarter here, 22-3. Up the backstretch they go. Double Honor leads it ahead in front. Rosa pressing the pace in second. Swiss Echo right there, a close third. Real Quiet along the inside, racing in fourth. Art Tax is racing nicely in fifth. 3 lengths off the pace, then Can Me. John Bill starts his run on the extreme outside. Behind that comes Buttons and Moe's. Then it's the Cynic, a gap of 3 back to Doc Martin. And yet to do his best running National Lore with a dozen to make up. Half mile in 45-4, a quick tempo here. Into the far turn, Double Honor, scoots clear by 2. Now Art Tax in hot pursuit, second. Real Quiet up the inside rail, long shot, Can Me. A Rosa and Swiss Echo are backpedaling, passed by Buttons and Moe's. John Bill set down for the drive, Doc Martin coming out. Here comes National Lore, revving up from the back of the pack. Top of the stretch now, Double Honor set down for the drive. Tackled by Real Quiet to the outside, and Art Tax gearing up down the center of the racetrack. Real Quiet, here comes Art Tax on the outside. Double Honor at the rail. Real Quiet has forged a short lead. Art Tax on the outside. Real Quiet in front. Art Tax not getting to him late. Real Quiet winning the Hollywood Futurity.
This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Using CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Simply log on with your username and password from the homepage. 2. Fund your Capital OTB account through our Easy Money, Green Dot, or Visa MasterCard options. And 3. Place your bet on one of our 3 easy-to-navigate wagering platforms, Capital Bet TV, Capital Bet Express, or Capital Bet Pro. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. I'm Mark Cassano. My thanks to Jerry Hollendorfer once again for having joined us, and Real Quiet, who would go on to win the Derby and the Preakness the following year and then suffer that brutal beat in the last jump in the Belmont Stakes, wins the 1997 Hollywood Futurity over Art Tax. You know, we don't normally discuss Saratoga a great deal at this time of year. I think we're just a day shy of something like 31 weeks till opening day. But NYRA made news recently with the increased costs coming up next year at Saratoga. And joining us this morning to discuss that, among other things, is the president of the New York Racing Association, Mr. Christopher Kay. Chris, Mark Cassano welcoming you back to Down the Stretch.
Thank you, Mark, and happy holidays to you and your audience.
Thank you, Chris. Happy holidays to you as well. Before we get into our discussion on Saratoga, give us an idea, what's the weather currently like downstate, and will you be running this afternoon?
We will definitely be running this afternoon. Now, I'm calling you from Westchester. I had a few obligations this morning, but it's snowing. It's snowing somewhat heavily. We're looking at 6 to 8 inches in Westchester, but down at Aqueduct today, we're looking at less than 2 inches of snow. We think we'll have a good track, and we'll be able to run all of our races today. We're going to modify the time between races and cut it a little bit shorter to be able to get all of them in, but we think we'll have a great day of racing today at Aqueduct.
All right. Okay, you proposed a number of increases for Saratoga 2014, which the Board of Directors approved. Let's begin with admission costs, specifically grandstand admission going from 3 to 5, clubhouse from 5 to 8. Chris, in an era where it is extremely challenging to draw folks to the racetrack, why the increases?
Well, there are a number of reasons why, but let's start at the basic premise. We operate the Saratoga race course, and it's good for Saratoga. There is a $200 million annual beneficial economic impact to Saratoga and the surrounding area every year. That's good for Saratoga, that's good for the New York Racing Association, and we want to make sure that continues for many years to come. To be able to make sure it does continue for many years to come, we need to operate responsibly and have a sustainable business plan. As I'm sure you know, in 2006, NYRA went into bankruptcy, came out in 2008. And since then, it has operated with deficits each year. Now, whether you own a business or run a business, or whether you're talking about your own personal household, you know you need to be able to bring in more than you spend, or otherwise you have a deficit. And those deficits are not sustainable. And so what we did this year was we said, how can we operate on a break-even basis? Because we want to have a sustainable business model going forward for many years to come. And we identified 12 different cost-cutting initiatives and 8 different revenue-generating initiatives. And that's what we're putting in place so that we can have a strong future because we're acting responsibly in the way we operate the Saratoga race course and NYRA in general. So what we did was we looked and we said, with respect to these increases, what are we charging right now and what are other racetracks charging? We believe that we have the finest value, the best racing in the country. But for example, at Del Mar, they charge $6 for general admission and $10 for clubhouse. Our increases are even less than that. So we feel this is a very responsible thing to do and frankly a very reasonable thing to do. And the last thing I would say to you is this. This is the first price increase in 9 years. Now, everybody knows that your costs go up. We employ hundreds of people in Saratoga every year. Those costs go up to pay those people. We pay taxes. This year we project we'll pay Saratoga County $1.2 million in taxes. Those costs go up. And so at some point, you can't have all your costs go up and not have your income go up as well if you want to be around for years to come.
That makes perfect business sense. I've got a question for you, though. When you factor in, and this may sound simplistic, but I think often it's very positive to keep things simple. The New York Racing Association is a not-for-profit. Chris, how does that factor in to your decision to raise certain prices?
Well, a not-for-profit organization or a for-profit organization has the same business principle. You need to be able to bring in more than you spend, or you won't be in business for much longer. I've worked at a Fortune 500 company, Toys R Us, and I've worked at a not-for-profit, the Trust for Public Land, and the principle is the same. The other thing I'd point out to you is that we are not making a profit in this budget. Even with all these significant price reductions, cost reductions, and the other ways we're trying to generate income, under our current plan, we're going to have a $1.8 million deficit, in large part because we're paying $13 million this year, we project, in federal income taxes.
Chris, would you agree that there is some level, nobody's certain how high that level is, but would you agree that there's some level of risk to doing this?
Oh, sure. Look, the easiest thing in the world would be for me not to try to balance our books. The people in Saratoga would love me like they did this year, but in the long term, what would be the viability of our organization? And so it's just really, I think, acting responsibly to say we need to be able to balance our books. And so what we've recommended is a very modest increase. $2 increase in the cost of a general admission ticket, $3 for a clubhouse ticket. And as I mentioned a moment ago, these prices are still less than the prices that are charged at Del Mar, at Arlington, at Keeneland, at Santa Anita. And those tracks have been having those price increases, if you will, in effect for years. So it's a modest increase. It's the first one in 9 years. I don't know many businesses that have not had a price increase in 9 years. Do you?
Chris, you're also increasing, please correct me if I'm wrong, you're increasing the cost of parking, you're increasing the cost of box seats. Will you also be increasing the cost of reserve seats at Saratoga?
There'll be, depending upon when, whether it's a clubhouse or a general admission, there will be anywhere from a $1 to $4 increase, depending upon what day of the week and depending upon what section you're in. And again, these are, you want to go back and keep talking about these increases. I keep trying to tell you, number one, this is necessary. Number two, it's market. And I guess the third point I'd make to you is its value. Where else can you go for entertainment and get in for $5, have a full afternoon of racing? You can bring in your own food. You can bring in your own beverages and see the finest racing around. And depending upon the age of your children, you can bring them in for free as well. If you go to a movie in Saratoga, you'll pay $10 to $12 for a seat. Your kids won't come in free. You can't bring in food. You can't bring in beverages. And after an hour and a half or 2 hours, they whisk you out of the building. So it's a great value. And we've added over 700 high-definition television screens and 2 large video screens that will be in the backyard, that will be in the grandstand, that will be in the clubhouse throughout the entire Saratoga facility.
Chris, are you surprised at all by the negative feedback? I mean, since the moment you announced this and the board approved the increases, there's been a lot of negative feedback to this. Are you surprised by that?
No, I think that there always are going to be people that say, oh, go ahead and balance the budget. I think that makes sense, but I don't want to be part of the process. And the fact is, it's tough. We're going to, there are a variety of ways you cut expenses. They're not easy. There are a variety of ways you try to increase revenue. They're not easy. If they were easy, they would have been done by our predecessors, but they weren't. And as I said, it would have been a lot easier for me not to have done this. Everybody would welcome me with open arms again next year. But what happens 3 years or 4 years or 5 years down the road when we don't have a sustainable business model? Then there's real valid criticism for the leadership of our organization. And I don't want to do anything to jeopardize that $200 million annual economic impact to Saratoga. And let's put this in perspective. Again, I said this is our first price increase in 9 years. It's a very modest amount. It's less than the cost of a cup of coffee or a Coke. It's $2 or $3. Now, did I expect people to be upset about it? Yes, I knew some would. But I hope when people step back and look at the fact that this is to benefit the long-term viability of Saratoga Racecourse and what it means to the community, they'll understand why we made this recommendation.
You've talked several times using the term sustainable business model. Chris, how much of this creating a balanced or small profitable budget for 2014, how much of this is being done so that at the end of 2015, if the franchise goes out to bid, it becomes that much more attractive?
Well, I don't know what's going to happen in 2015. And let me just go back and say, we're not generating a profit. We're going to have, with all of these steps we're taking, a $1.8 million deficit. And that is, we hope we can generate all the monies we suggest. Most budgets, you do better in some areas and less than others. But our budget currently is reflecting a $1.8 million deficit. But whether you are going to sell a business or come out of a reprioritization in 2015 or not, I go back to if you are responsible for your own household or if you run a small business or a large business, everybody knows you cannot have a sustainable future if you continue to run deficits. And we've been having operating deficits every year since we emerged from bankruptcy.
Chris, are the spa increases set in stone? In listening to the board of directors meeting, there were discussions about trying it out at Belmont Park, seeing how that worked, doing some research, focus groups. What's that status?
Well, we have done a significant amount of research into the market before we made these recommendations, and we'll provide additional information to the board in the future. And I think one of the comments made by a very savvy retailer on our board is you make changes and you see how the market responds. But one of the other things that I guess I should point out is that there are things that are opportunities for us to serve the needs of the folks in Saratoga in ways that they may find very attractive but don't know much about. One of the things that will be available to you will be a season's pass, where it will cost much less than even $3 to get in on, because if you looked at it over the cost of the entire season. Only 432 season passes were sold last year. We're going to take steps to make sure the public understands the value available in our season pass, and hope that some of the people that are concerned about these costs will say this is a great value for the season pass and buy one of them.
When we did our interviews last summer, when it was sunny and warm at Saratoga, you also mentioned it earlier in this interview, you've always looked to improve the customer experience at Saratoga. People are going to say to you, okay, you're charging us more money to get in. How are you going to improve Saratoga?
Well, if you spend over $1 million on high-definition videos, screens, televisions, and video boards, that's one way to enhance the guest experience. And Mark, I walk that property every day, the backyard, the grandstands, the clubhouse, and if it's one thing I heard day in and day out, every day, was these television sets. What can you do about these television sets? And so we are responding to that comment made on so many occasions, and we're providing a much better experience when you look up and see a high-definition television set or monitor or one of the video boards. In addition, we're also improving a number of the bathrooms. And finally, we're going to try to create an experience for families with young children where they can actually get up and the children can touch a horse and connect with a horse in a far different way than just as a spectator during the race.
We spoke earlier about a risk to some degree. Chris, what's your biggest concern? What happens if next July and August the attendance takes a substantial drop?
Well, I guess we'll have to see why it takes a substantial drop. I mean, weather can be a very important factor. We've looked at the attendance over the last 5 years and established the average. And frankly, the attendance in 2013 was pretty much flat with the average for the last 5 years. It was less than 1% down. But one of the things that, it's pretty obvious, but I'll say it anyway, when people come and they place a bet and they win, they expect cash. We don't talk about the attendance figures. When people work at Saratoga Race Course, they expect cash at the end of the week, not discussion about the attendance figures. And so one of the things we pay a great deal of attention to is how much cash is being poured out, if you will, at Saratoga. This year, 2013, we had the second highest on-track handle in the last 5 years, and we're only $3 million short of being the highest in the last 5 years. And I think our weather in the last weekend probably had an effect upon that. In addition, people spend money for food and beverage and souvenir items. It was up 15.2% in 2013 over 2012, and the highest amount of money spent in those categories to date. So we look at this and we say, we think that the sport is doing very well. Our performance at Saratoga was very strong, and we're working with a variety of other people to encourage them to come from Boston, from Baltimore, and from spots in between to make a weekend or a week of vacation at Saratoga in 2014.
In mid-January, you are going to modify your schedule at Aqueduct. You're going to change your racing week a little bit. You're going to start racing on Mondays and be dark on Wednesdays. Talk about that decision.
Well, that's one of the number of things we're trying to do in 2014 to experiment. As you mentioned earlier, in 2015, we're required to come up with a plan for reprivatization. And so the idea in 2014 is let's look at different ideas and see which ones work and which ones don't. That way our plan in 2015 will be predicated upon data, not upon conjecture. And so some of the horsemen had said, let's try this. There isn't much competition on Monday. Perhaps we would actually be able to generate more handle. And so we thought, well, we'll give it a shot. And so, as you mentioned, we're going to run on Mondays in January, and we'll see how it goes. Now, some people will say, the reason nobody really runs on Monday is because there isn't much demand. Well, we're going to try it and find out.
Chris, as part of the cost savings effort, you're going to discontinue training at Aqueduct for a 2 to 4 month period next year. What's the feedback been from the horsemen?
Well, I think a lot of horsemen, understand the need that we have to operate on a break-even basis. Number two, at the same time that we're recommending that Aqueduct be closed, we've got a large facility at Belmont, and we've got the facility in Saratoga. In some of those months, actually, we will be operating in Saratoga and shuttling horses back and forth. So I think that for a number of months, we shouldn't have a problem.
Well, Chris, we thank you so very much for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch. We appreciate your time and wish you once again a happy holiday season, Merry Christmas, and we'll look forward to speaking with you again very soon.
Mark, thank you very much, and the same sentiments to you and to your audience.
Thank you,
Chris.
Chris.
Have a great holiday season.
Chris Kay, ladies and gentlemen, the president of the New York Racing Association. He makes, and you may not like this, but he makes a lot of valid points about a business model. The fact that an increase of admission costs at Saratoga has not happened since, I believe, about 2005. My concern is, and I've said this before, NYRA is different in the respect that they are a not-for-profit. And when the New York Racing Association was created many, many decades ago, there were reasons why it was created as a non-profit or a not-for-profit. So we're going to have to see how this works out. Now, we've got a couple of minutes. And before we leave you this morning, I want to show you a race from yesterday at Hollywood Park. Now, this is simply a maiden race for 2-year-olds. But I want you to focus in on number 5, Midnight Hawk. This is a first-time starter from Bob Baffert. So focus your eyes on number 5, Midnight Hawk, as we take you back to yesterday's 4th race from Hollywood Park.
They're off. Midnight Hawk broke very slowly. Windhurst breaks well. Snuggly Bear is close up. Arkenstone 1 off the rail. Carson's 10 at the fence. Now Midnight Hawk is recovering to race up all the way up to challenge the lead, and going with him is Go Black Tie. And Midnight Hawk, who broke desperately last, has run to the front. Midnight Hawk well off the rail, 3/4 of a length to Go Black Tie in second. Snuggly Bear and at the rail Windhurst, and now these two run by Midnight Hawk, and so Snuggly Bear and Windhurst are 1-2. Midnight Hawk will sit third now and 1.5 lengths from the front. Go Black Tie is fourth with 4 lengths to make up. The two trailers are Carson's 10 and Arkenstone as they leave the backstretch, and the leader is Windhurst half ahead. Snuggly Bear is second. Midnight Hawk just 1.25 lengths behind those two in third, and now on the attack, here's Midnight Hawk 3D. Go Black Tie has tailed off to 5 from the front. Arkenstone hard-ridden just outside of him, and the trailer is Carson's 10, and here comes Midnight Hawk 3D. Midnight Hawk 3 wide, Windhurst at the rail, and Snugly Bear between horses. The three of them line up at the top of the stretch. 5 back to Go Black Tie. Midnight Hawk now takes over the lead. It is Midnight Hawk suddenly 3 lengths in front. Snugly Bear is second. Windhurst is third, and then Go Black Tie, but it's Midnight Hawk now 5 in front. Snugly Bear and Go Black Tie. Midnight Hawk. Midnight Hawk won by 5.5. Snugly Bear was second. Go Black Tie third. Windhurst finished fourth.
Midnight Hawk, a first-timer, a son of Midnight Loop, makes his debut for Bob Baffert. And we know Baffert has his first-timers, his babies cranked up. A couple of things I liked about that, though. He got away a bit slowly, did not rush, but advanced nicely to make the lead under Mike Smith. And then the colt came back to him. He let the other 2 horses duel, sat off them, and made another run. So it wasn't like your quote-unquote normal baby race where the most precocious or the fastest horse usually wins. Midnight Hawk did a lot in that race, and it's going to be interesting to see him progress from there, but we wanted to show you that, and since we had a couple of extra minutes, it worked out well. All right, time to thank all the folks who helped get this week's show on the air here at the studios of the Clubhouse, at the Clubhouse Racebook in Albany. Our associate producer, Julie Hoxie, and Brian DiRenzo. Back in the control room in Schenectady, Pat Peretta directed and handled pre-production, Landis Burgess on audio. Thanks to this morning's guest, Jerry Hollendorfer from sunny and warm Southern California, and NYRA President Chris Kay from snowy New York. And thanks to our sponsor, Embrace the Race, the apparel for the horse racing lifestyle, who reminds you, now you know what to ask for this holiday season. The brand for you and your lifestyle. Embrace the Race. Tell your family and friends they can shop for you by reaching one of their personal shoppers at the store at 12 Circular Street in Saratoga. You can call them at 518-580-4500 or visit them online at embracetherace.com. Embrace the Race, the apparel for the horse racing lifestyle. Great brand, amazing products, perfect for the holiday season. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you so very much for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch. Enjoy all the racing action this weekend here at Capitol. Coast to Coast, Aqueduct, as you heard Chris Kay, will be running. You'll get sunnier and warmer weather from Gulfstream in South Florida and Hollywood Park. Be careful, as the weather forecast for us is going to get worse as the weekend progresses, so be very, very careful. Going to leave you this morning with a little bit of a look at last Saturday's Hollywood Starlet. So, ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful weekend and a terrific upcoming week. And from all of us here at Down the Stretch, we'll see you next week.
And Streaming has taken over the lead. She's a half length in front of Taste Like Candy. Untappable still has 2.5 to make up. Rosalind is too far back, and Streaming is clear. Streaming now 2 in front. Taste Like Candy, Untappable, and Rosalind, but Streaming is clear to the wire, and Streaming is going to win the Hollywood Starlet.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.